The morning rain had just begun to fall over the quiet town when something unusual happened at Fire Station 14. The crew was getting ready for a slow, damp day, sipping coffee, running routine checks, and waiting for the first call. But then, just after 6:30 a.m., a faint scratching sound was heard at the side door. At first, no one paid much attention, thinking it was the wind or maybe a branch. But the scratching continued, slow and steady. Lieutenant Carl Thompson walked over and opened the door. What he saw made him stop in his tracks. There, soaked from head to paw, stood a stray dog. Its fur was matted, its eyes wide and alert. But the strangest thing was what it carried in its mouth, a child's sneaker. The white fabric was stained red with what looked like dry blood. The dog didn't growl or bark. It simply dropped the shoe at Carl's feet and stared up at him, tail still and ears flat. Carl knelt down and carefully picked up the shoe. "It's a kid's," he said quietly. "And that's blood." Firefighter Maria stepped forward. "Look at the laces. That's a rocket charm." Her voice dropped. "That's the kind of charm parents buy for little kids." Just 2 days earlier, an alert had gone out about a missing 8-year-old boy named Aiden Turner. He had disappeared during a camping trip in the woods with his family. Search efforts had been called off temporarily due to heavy storms. No new leads had surfaced until now. Maria rushed to the station's computer and pulled up the missing person flyer. The description matched perfectly. Aiden had been wearing red sneakers with a rocket charm on the laces when he vanished. The realization hit the crew hard. This wasn't a coincidence. Somehow, this stray dog had found its way to the station carrying what could be the boy's shoe. They called local authorities immediately. Officers arrived within minutes, followed closely by Aiden's mother, Elise Turner. Her eyes filled with tears the moment she saw the shoe. "That's Aiden's," she said, voice trembling. "He never takes those off." The dog stood beside Elise and gently nudged her leg with its nose. It let out a quiet whine, then turned and looked toward the forest in the distance. Everyone went silent. It was clear the dog wasn't done. It wanted them to follow. Sheriff Daniels turned to Lieutenant Carl. "If that dog came all this way with this shoe, it's not just a stray. It's trying to lead us somewhere." Carl didn't hesitate. "Then we're going to follow it." As the firefighters gathered their gear, the dog took off at a slow jog, occasionally glancing back to make sure they were coming. The rain picked up again, but no one cared. Something about the dog's behavior, its determination, made them believe that whatever lay ahead in those woods might just be the answer they were all hoping for. The dog moved quickly, its paws splashing through puddles along the edge of the forest. The firefighters followed, their boots crunching against wet gravel and soggy leaves. Behind them, Sheriff Daniels and 2 deputies stayed close, their flashlights piercing the mist as they moved deeper into the trees. No one spoke much. All eyes were on the dog. Maria kept glancing down at the muddy path, her heart pounding with every step. The forest was dense and quiet, save for the sound of rain and the occasional snap of a branch underfoot. It felt like the woods were holding their breath. "How far do you think he'll take us?" one deputy asked. "As far as he needs to," Carl replied, never taking his eyes off the dog. "He came for a reason. He's not stopping until we find it." The dog, whom they had started calling Scout, suddenly slowed. He sniffed the ground, then veered sharply to the left, deeper into the woods. The path narrowed, the trees pressing in from both sides. Scout paused and looked back at the group, eyes alert, before moving forward again. It was clear he wanted them to trust him. About 30 minutes into the hike, Maria spotted something ahead. "Wait, what's that?" Scout ran toward a clump of bushes and began digging furiously. Carl pushed past a few branches and knelt beside him. Hidden beneath the wet underbrush was a torn green backpack. He gently pulled it out and held it up. A water bottle with stickers, a small flashlight, and a child-sized hoodie tumbled out. The name Aiden was written on the tag inside. "It's his," Elise whispered from behind, her voice catching in her throat. "That's Aiden's backpack." Scout paced back and forth near the backpack, his body tense, nose still searching. He barked once, loud and sharp, and then darted ahead with a new urgency. Without hesitation, the The group picked up their pace. They moved downhill now, the ground slick with mud. Maria slipped once, catching herself on a branch. Carl reached out a hand to steady her. Be careful, it's steep. Scout paused at the edge of a deep ravine. The others caught up quickly, breathing hard. The drop was sharp, at least 30 feet down, and the terrain looked dangerous. But then they heard it. A soft cry. Elise froze. Did you hear that? Everyone stood still. There it was again, a faint, weak whimper. It was a child's voice. Carl leaned over the edge, carefully shining his flashlight down. His heart skipped a beat. There, he shouted. There's someone down there, next to that fallen tree. Lying at the bottom of the ravine, barely visible, was a small figure in a green hoodie. He wasn't moving much, but he was alive. It's him, Elise whispered. It's Aiden. Scout let out a long, relieved whine and laid down at the edge, tail wagging slowly. Without a second thought, Carl and one of the deputies began preparing a rope. The team worked fast, the sense of urgency now replaced by hope. They had found the boy, and it was all because a stray dog had refused to give up. Carl's hands moved carefully but quickly as he secured the rope to a sturdy tree above. The others watched, breath held tight, as he began his slow descent into the ravine. The ground was slippery from the rain, and every movement had to be precise. Scout stayed close to the edge, his eyes fixed on Carl and the small figure below. As Carl drew closer, the boy came into clearer view. Aiden lay against the trunk of a fallen tree, his face pale and streaked with dirt. His left leg was twisted at an awkward angle, and he shivered despite the damp clothes clinging to him. His eyes fluttered open, and a weak smile appeared when he saw the firefighter. You came? Aiden whispered, voice barely audible. Carl gave a reassuring nod. We're here now, buddy. You're safe. Carefully, Carl wrapped a makeshift splint around Aiden's injured ankle. The boy winced but didn't complain. His lips were cracked and his skin cold to the touch. It was clear he had been trapped for hours. Above, the team was preparing to pull Carl and Aiden up. The rope was taut, every firefighter ready to help if needed. Scout let out a soft bark, as if urging everyone to hurry. The dog's eyes never left Aiden, his tail wagging slowly, but with clear relief. Once Carl was safely back on solid ground, the paramedics moved in. They covered Aiden with a thermal blanket and checked his vitals. His breathing was shallow but steady. He was cold and exhausted, but alive. Elise rushed forward, tears streaming down her face. She hugged her son tightly, whispering promises of safety and love. Scout nuzzled Aiden's shoulder, staying close as if to protect him. Thank you, Elise said to the firefighters, her voice choked. You saved my son. Carl smiled but shook his head. It was the dog who led us here. Without him, we might never have found Aiden. Scout, the once stray dog, had become an unlikely hero. The paramedics carefully carried Aiden to a waiting ambulance. The journey to the hospital was quiet but hopeful. Everyone on the team knew this was a moment they would never forget. Back at the fire station, news spread quickly. The story of the dog that delivered a bloody shoe and led rescuers to a lost boy captured the hearts of the entire community. Scout, now calm and settled in the warmth of the station, received extra food and gentle pats. The firefighters talked quietly about how a stray had become their guide in the wilderness. Later that evening, the hospital confirmed that Aiden's injuries, while serious, were not life-threatening. He had a fractured ankle and mild hypothermia, but was expected to make a full recovery. The family's relief was overwhelming. Elise sat by her son's bedside, holding his hand, while Scout rested on the floor beside them. Outside the window, the rain finally stopped. A new day was coming, a day of healing, hope, and gratitude. For Scout, the dog who had refused to give up, this was just the beginning of a new chapter. Days passed since the rescue, but the story of the stray dog and the missing boy continued to ripple through the town. Scout, the dog who had carried a bloody shoe through the rain to the fire station, was no longer just a stray. He had become a symbol of hope and bravery. At the hospital, Aiden's recovery was steady. He was a brave boy, enduring the pain of his fractured ankle and the cold that had settled deep in his bones. But what amazed everyone most was how often he spoke of Scout, the dog who had stayed with him in the woods, keeping him warm during the long, cold night. "It was my protector," Aiden told the nurse with a shy smile. "I didn't think I'd make it, but Scout stayed right by me. I wasn't scared." Elise watched her son with gratitude and awe. "I owe that dog my son's life," she said quietly to one of the firefighters who had visited the hospital. "I want to find him." Meanwhile, at Fire Station 14, Scout was given a warm bed and plenty of food. The firefighters had grown attached to the dog quickly. He was calm, loyal, and seemed to understand that he was now part of the team. Despite all the attention, Scout's past remained a mystery. Animal control scanned for a microchip, but none was found. His collar was old and worn, and the tag was barely readable. The name Scout was etched faintly on the metal. One afternoon, a woman named Linda called the fire station after seeing the news story on TV. She recognized the dog immediately. "That's Scout," she said, voice trembling. "He belonged to my brother, a forest ranger who passed away a few years ago. Scout disappeared after his funeral and never came home. I thought he was gone forever." The firefighters listened closely. Linda explained how Scout had been trained to follow scents and help in search and rescue missions. She believed Scout's instincts had led him straight to Aiden. "Scout has a special bond with the forest," Linda said softly. "He knew he had to find that boy." With Linda's help, the fire station and animal control made plans to give Scout a proper checkup and care. Donations began to pour in from the community, all wanting to help the dog who had saved a life. Scout's story was everywhere, on social media, in newspapers, and on local news channels. People were moved by the loyalty and courage of a dog who had braved storms and danger to bring hope to a family. But for Scout, the rewards were simple: a warm bed, kind hands, and the chance to be loved again. Elise and Aiden visited the fire station often, each visit deepening the bond between the boy and the dog who had saved him. One quiet evening, as Scout rested near the fireplace, Aiden looked down at him and said, "You're my hero, Scout. I want you to be part of our family." Scout's eyes shone with a calm intelligence, as if he understood the promise. In the heart of a small town, a stray dog had become more than just a rescue story. He had become a quiet hero, a guardian, a friend, and a symbol of hope that even the smallest acts of bravery can change lives forever. Scout's days at the fire station became a blend of quiet routine and unexpected excitement. The firefighters who once saw him as a passing stray now saw him as family. He was no longer the lonely dog who had braved storms and fear alone. He was a hero with a new life ahead. Each morning, Scout greeted the crew with gentle tail wags and soft barks. When alarms rang out, he would sit alert by the door, ready to watch over his human friends. At night, he curled up in a corner of the station, finally safe and warm. Meanwhile, Aiden's recovery continued. The hospital staff praised his strength, but everyone knew the true reason for his courage was Scout's presence in the woods that cold night. Aiden's doctors agreed that the boy's chances of survival had been slim without help, and the dog's loyalty had made all the difference. One afternoon, Elise received a call from Linda, the woman who had identified Scout as the forest ranger's dog. She invited Elise and Aiden to meet her at a small animal clinic on the edge of town. When they arrived, Scout was there, looking healthier and calmer than before. The clinic's veterinarian had examined him thoroughly, confirming that Scout was in good shape but would need some time to regain full strength. More importantly, they found no signs of abuse or neglect. Scout had survived on his own, but was clearly well-trained and cared for once. Linda smiled warmly. "Scout's been through a lot, but he's a fighter. And now he's found the family he's been looking for." The moment felt right. Elise looked down at Aiden, whose eyes sparkled with hope. "We want Scout to be part of our family," she said softly. Linda nodded, tears in her eyes. "He'll be happy with you. He's a loyal soul." The decision was made. Scout was officially adopted by the Turner family, and arrangements were made to bring him home for good. Back at the fire station, the news spread quickly. The firefighters threw a small celebration, complete with extra treats and belly rubs for Scout. It was their way of saying thank you to the dog who had risked everything for a stranger. Scout's story also caught the attention of the local community. Fundraisers were organized to support search and rescue dogs and to honor the memory of the forest ranger who had trained Scout. The town's mayor even announced a special award recognizing Scout's bravery. For Aiden, having Scout at home was a dream come true. The two became inseparable. Scout followed Aiden everywhere, whether it was a walk to school, a trip to the park, or quiet evenings spent reading. One day, as they played in the backyard, Aiden paused and hugged Scout tightly. "Thank you for saving me," he said simply. Scout wagged his tail, as if saying, "I'll always be here." In a world filled with uncertainty, the bond between a boy and a dog proved that hope and courage could come from the most unexpected places. And for Scout, this was just the beginning of a new life, one filled with love, safety, and a family who would never let him go. Life slowly settled into a new rhythm for Aiden, Elise, and Scout. The boy's physical wounds were healing, but the emotional scars ran deeper. Aiden sometimes woke from nightmares, scared and trembling, and Elise found herself watching him closely, worrying if the trauma would linger. But Scout was always there, a quiet guardian who seemed to understand more than anyone else. When Aiden had a bad dream, Scout would rest his head gently on the boy's lap or nudge him softly, grounding him in the present. Elise watched this bond grow with gratitude and relief. "Scout has given Aiden more than just protection in the woods," she said one evening to Carl and Maria, who had come by to visit. "He's helping him heal." Carl nodded. Animals have a way of reaching places people can't. Scout's loyalty is something special. The community also rallied around the family. Local schools invited Aiden to share his story, and Scout became a beloved visitor at classrooms, helping children understand the importance of kindness and courage. One sunny afternoon, the Turners took Scout to a nearby lake for a picnic. Aiden threw sticks for Scout to chase, and the dog splashed happily in the water, his tail wagging endlessly. As they relaxed under the shade of a tall oak tree, Elise smiled at her son. "You're stronger than you know, Aiden." He looked at Scout, then back at his mother. "I think Scout saved me in more ways than one." Scout, sensing the moment, rested his head on Aiden's knee, his eyes full of trust and warmth. But healing wasn't just about the family. Scout's own past was slowly coming to light. Linda shared stories of her brother, the forest ranger who had trained Scout with care and love. He had been a quiet hero in the town, respected by many for his dedication to protecting the woods and its people. "Scout learned everything from him," Linda said softly. "He was more than a dog. He was a partner." That connection made Scout's role in Aiden's rescue even more meaningful. It was as if fate had guided Scout back to the place where he belonged, carrying on a legacy of bravery and kindness. One evening, as the sun set over the town, Elise found Scout quietly watching the horizon. She sat beside him, feeling a deep sense of peace. "You saved my son's life," she whispered, "and you're part of our family now. Thank you." Scout's tail gave a slow wag. In that moment, it was clear that the dog who had once been a stray had finally found his home and his purpose. The story of Scout and Aiden became a reminder for everyone who heard it. Sometimes, the greatest heroes come in the most unexpected forms. And with love and courage, healing is possible, no matter the wounds. As Scout settled into his new life with the Turners, the town around them was inspired by the story of the brave dog and the missing boy. It wasn't just a tale of rescue. It was a reminder of how a single act of loyalty and courage could change everything. The fire station became a hub of community pride. Local businesses donated supplies to help care for Scout and other rescue animals. Schools organized fundraisers to support search and rescue teams, and a local artist even painted a mural of Scout carrying the bloody shoe through the rain. The mayor announced a Scout Day to honor the dog's heroic actions. On this special day, families gathered in the town square. Children wore T-shirts with Scout's face, and firefighters told the story of how a stray dog had led them to a lost boy. Aiden, now stronger and more confident, stood beside Scout as the mayor presented a medal for bravery. "Scout is more than a dog," Aiden said, his voice steady and proud. "He's my hero." Scout wagged his tail, sensing the importance of the moment, but remained humble and quiet, as if simply glad to be there. Elise looked around the smiling faces and felt a deep gratitude for the community that had come together in support of her family and Scout. The story also sparked conversations about the importance of caring for animals and the vital role they can play in human lives. Local shelters saw an increase in adoptions, and many residents volunteered to help stray animals find safe homes. Scout's journey from a lost stray to a celebrated hero became a powerful symbol of hope and resilience. One evening, the fire station hosted a special gathering to thank Scout and the team for their efforts. The firefighters shared stories, laughed, and enjoyed a meal together. Scout lay quietly at their feet, content and calm. Maria, one of the firefighters who had helped in the rescue, spoke up. "Scout reminded us all that courage doesn't always come from the strongest or the fastest. Sometimes it comes from those who refuse to give up." The sentiment resonated deeply with everyone present. Scout's quiet determination had inspired a whole town. For Aiden, Scout was not just a pet or a hero. He was a friend who had changed his life forever. As the evening wore on, Aiden looked at Scout and whispered, "Thank you for never giving up on me." Scout's eyes met his, full of understanding and warmth. In that moment, words weren't needed. The town would always remember the night a stray dog brought hope in the darkest hour. And for Scout and Aiden, their story was just the beginning of a lifelong bond filled with love, courage, and friendship. Months had passed since Scout's heroic rescue, and life had settled into a new, joyful normal for the Turner family. Aiden was back at school, his steps steadier, his smile brighter. The fractured ankle was healing well, but the true healing had come from the friendship and trust he found in Scout. The bond between boy and dog was unbreakable. Scout followed Aiden everywhere, a shadow of loyalty and comfort. At night, Scout curled up by Aiden's bed, guarding his dreams as the boy drifted into peaceful sleep. Scout's story had touched countless hearts. The town had embraced him not just as a hero, but as a reminder of the kindness and courage that could come from even the most unlikely places. Elise often thought about how close they had come to tragedy and how a single act by a stray dog had changed their lives forever. She kept a worn photo of Scout, taken the day he arrived at the hospital, framed on the mantel, a symbol of hope and second chances. One crisp autumn afternoon, the fire station held a ceremony to officially honor Scout. The mayor presented a plaque, and the firefighters shared stories of that stormy night when a dog's determination had saved a boy's life. Linda, the woman who had helped connect Scout to his past, stood proudly beside the Turners. "Scout is more than a dog," she said. "He's a legacy of loyalty passed down from my brother, the ranger who trained him. That legacy lives on in every life Scout touches." Scout, calm and dignified, accepted the praise with quiet grace. His eyes, bright and steady, told the story of courage born from hardship. As the ceremony ended, Aiden knelt down and hugged Scout tightly. "You're my best friend, Scout. I'll never forget what you did." Scout licked his face gently, as if promising he would always be there. That night, as the family gathered around the fireplace, Elise reflected on the journey they had been through. The fear, the uncertainty, the hope, and finally, the love that had brought them back together. Scout lay at their feet, content and peaceful. In his quiet way, he had given them a gift more valuable than any medal or honor, the chance to heal, to trust, and to believe in miracles. The story of the stray dog who delivered a bloody shoe to the fire station was told and retold, inspiring others to see the power of compassion and courage in the face of darkness. And for Scout and Aiden, every day was a new adventure, one filled with love, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between a boy and his dog. In a world often filled with uncertainty, their story was a beacon of hope, a reminder that sometimes the greatest heroes come on four paws with a heart full of loyalty and a spirit that never gives up.